This is lesson 4.3b. We are going to continue writing and solving addition and subtraction equations. Let's start by looking at example 2. It says Clive is 19 years younger than Josh. Clive is 34. Write and solve a subtraction equation to find Josh's age. So we know Josh's age is just the letter Y. We don't actually know a number for Y yet, but that's what we're going to be solving. So Josh's age is going to be the largest amount here because Clive is 19 years younger than Josh. And they tell us that Clive is 34. So if we start with Josh's age, Y, which is this whole amount Y, and then we subtract 19, because they say that that Clive is 19 years younger than Josh. That's going to leave us with Clive's age, which we know is 34. So we have our equation here. We don't know Josh's age, but we know that Clive is 19 years younger than him. So if we start with Josh's age and we subtract 19, it will leave us with 34. So we have our equation, y minus 19 equals 34. Let's start by drawing a dotted line down the middle of the equal sign. That separates our left side and our right side of the equation. We have to remember to keep those two sides of the equation balanced. Next, let's circle the variable because that tells us what we're going to be solving for. So my goal is to get Y alone. I'm looking to see what is attached to Y right now. What is on the same side of the equation as Y? Minus 19 is. So I'm going to do the inverse operation or the opposite operation of subtraction in order to get rid of that minus 19. So what's the opposite of minus 19? Plus 19. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So now let's look at what remains in our equation. I bring down the Y. Minus 19 plus 19, I can cross those off. Those are going to cancel and give us 0. I don't have to write Y plus 0 because Y plus 0 just equals Y. Bring down my equals sign. Now let's solve that right side of the equation. What's 34 plus 19? 34 plus 19 is 53. So that tells us that Josh's age is 15. I can check this by plugging in that value for Y into the equation. I would do 53 minus 19. Does that equal 34? Well, what's 53 minus 19? Put it in your calculator. 53 minus 19 is 34. So 34 equals 34. Check. Now let's look at example 3, and there are actually 2 ways to solve example 3. There were also 2 ways to solve that last question. So some of you may have wanted to add, but some of you may have wanted to write an addition sentence for that last one, but we had to do a subtraction equation because that was the way that the problem told us to do it. But let's look at this example number 3. Andy had some basketball cards. After he bought 12 more, he had 48 cards. How many cards did Andy have at the start? So they drew a bar diagram to represent the situation. Andy had N cards to start, so he had some amount to start. He bought 12 more, and then the total was 48. So that's represented on that bar diagram. So to write an equation, it says Andy had some basketball cards. So that's an unknown amount, N. He bought some more. He bought 12 more. And then he had 48 cards. So one equation to write here would be N plus 12 equals 48. The second equation that we could have wrote would have been, okay, well, Andy finishes with 48 cards, right? So I can start with that total. I could start with the whole amount. So if I have the 48 and I subtract one part of it, the 12, then I'm going to equal the n cards that he originally had. So now we have two equations here that we have to solve. Let's start by solving this top equation. I draw a dotted line where I see my equal sign. I circle my variable. That way I get my variable alone. So I have n plus 12 on the left side of my equation. I want to get n alone. I have to get rid of that plus 12. What's the opposite of plus 12? The opposite of plus 12 will be to subtract 12. Whatever I do from one side, I have to do to the other side. So what's remaining on that left side? N plus 12 minus 12 cancel equals 48 minus 12 is 36. So he started with 36 cards, and that makes sense because 36 plus 12 would be 48. Now let's solve our second equation here. I'm going to draw a dotted line down the middle. Well, look, my variable n is already alone. So that means all I have to do is evaluate that left side of the equation. 48 minus 12, 36. 36 equals n. So there were two ways to solve this equation. Either way, if we plugged it in to check our answer, we would get the same answer. Okay, last question I want us to look at is number 3 here. Number 3 says that Claire had T seashells. After she bought 8 more seashells, she had 24 shells. Write and solve an equation to find the number of seashells Claire started with. So Claire had T seashells. She's starting with T. And then it says that she bought 8 more seashells. So if you're buying something, will that number increase or decrease? Will we be adding or subtracting? We're going to be adding 8. If we're buying more shells, the number of shells she has will be going up. We will be adding 8 more to that. So after she bought 8 more shells, she had 24 seashells. So T plus 8 is going to equal 24. I want you to write this equation in your notebook and solve for T. What does T equal? So I'm going to draw a dotted line down my equation. I'm going to circle my variable because I want to get my variable alone. I look to see what is attached to that T, plus 8. So let's do the opposite of plus 8, which is minus 8. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Plus 8 minus 8 cancel. That leaves me with T on the left. T equals 24 minus 8, which is 16. Let's plug that into our original equation to check it. So I should have 16 plus 8 will equal 24. 16 plus 8 is 24. 24, bring down the rest, equals 24. Check.